Can you imagine a time when human wrists were traded as though they were currency? Greetings everyone, I'm Chris. Today we're diving deep into the dark history of the Congo, where human life was reduced to a mere commodity. In this video, we'll explore how King Leopold II of Belgium exploited the Congo and its people in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. We'll look at how a system emerged where human wrists became a form of currency, leading to unimaginable suffering and a drastic population decline. This is a story of colonialism, exploitation, and the devastating impact of one man's ambition. If you find this video interesting, please support us by hitting the like button. Now, let's get started. About 120 years ago, a terrifying system existed in the Congo, where human wrists were valued as if they were currency. Wrists were kept traded and stolen as if they were money. Estimates suggest that between 20 and 30 million people inhabited the Congo during that era. Tragically, within just 2 decades, this number plummeted to around 8 million. Due to the horrific system in place. The horrific history began in 1876, with a report by an English explorer stating, "The Congo is rich in resources." At the time of this report, however, many European countries had their hands full managing other overseas territories they already owned, so they showed little interest in the Congo region. However, one individual took notice of the explorer's report and soon rose to prominence, subjecting the Congo to a reign of terror. That individual was none other than King Leopold II of Belgium, a ruler with grand ambition. Leopold II was not content with ruling just Belgium. He had grand ambitions to expand his territory. Much like other European countries of the time, many attractive overseas territories were already under European influence, making it difficult for him to find a suitable location. Leopold II acted swiftly. He first appealed to other European countries, asking for their support to bring peace and improve living standards in Africa. Then he formed an organization to manage the Congo, dispatched explorers familiar with the region, and promoted its development. Under Leopold II, the Congo also experienced economic and infrastructural development, albeit at a terrible human cost. Moreover, since the Congo at this time was not one coherent country, but several villages in disarray, Leopold II strengthened his rule by acquiring one village after another, sometimes by force and sometimes by bribing them with gifts. Leopold II rapidly advanced this invasion in the name of charity over the course of 5 years. But there was a clear reason for his haste to take control of the Congo. In fact, the central part of Africa, initially overlooked, was increasingly drawing the attention of European powers. For a long time, the central part of Africa had been a place where many people had been taken overseas due to the slave trade that European countries were engaged in to obtain cheap labor. But at that time, European countries were content to ship people brought in by other Africans at the ports, so they did not see the need for direct invasion into the interior. However, with the money saved from the slave trade, European countries began to invent various machines, and they began to seek markets for the resources and goods they needed to make their products. With those machines, rather than labor power, the world was becoming increasingly dependent on European powers. Yes, the world was about to enter the era of the partition of Africa by the so-called European countries. Belgium was a small European country, and if the Congo caught the attention of other European powers, before establishing a foothold, it risked being taken over quickly. Leopold II, while ostensibly camouflaging himself by improving the standard of living in Africa, was rapidly developing the region and strengthening the administrative system. Finally, in 1884, a conference was held among the Western powers to determine who would control which parts of Africa. During this conference, which completely ignored the existence of Africans, it was concluded that it would be better to leave the Congo to the King of Belgium, who was already developing the land and was in a relatively neutral position, than to create a new risk that the great powers would compete with each other for it. Leopold II succeeded in gaining the approval of the other European countries for his rule of the Congo. This was the beginning of an unprecedented tragedy in the Congo. Leopold II had one major concern after gaining his long-desired overseas territories: the chronic lack of funds. This was primarily due to financial limitations. Although Leopold II was the King of Belgium, the Belgian government was not very eager to rule the Congo, because it had previously failed to manage another overseas territory. And Leopold II was not allowed to use the country's money to develop the Congo. Leopold II couldn't use state funds for the development of the Congo. Instead, he privately owned the land, financing it with his own money. In 1888, Leopold II's financial troubles were suddenly alleviated with the invention of the pneumatic rubber tire for bicycles. The ability to inflate rubber tires made it possible to achieve a level of comfort and stability unmatched by previous tires. And this led to an immediate boom in bicycles. This led to an explosion in global demand for rubber. This development provided a financial lifeline to King Leopold II. In fact, the Congo was a rich source of raw materials for rubber. Leopold II, seizing this opportunity, had the raw materials for rubber extracted one after another from the Congo and sold them to the world at high prices. Through this, Leopold II not only resolved his financial issues, but also amassed tremendous wealth, all at the expense of the Congolese people. However, this came at the cost of unimaginable suffering for Congolese society. In fact, when Leopold II ordered the extraction of the raw material for rubber, he enslaved the local people and forced them to work in order to minimize costs. He then organized an army to manage the slaves and ruled them by violence. At this time, slavery had been abolished in most Western countries and had already become obsolete. But because the Congo was the private land of King Leopold II, he was able to establish slavery without foreign interference. The army organized to control slaves would first break into villages and take hostages, mainly old men, women, and children, forcing adult men to perform forced labor to obtain raw materials for rubber. Many of the men worked to have their families returned, but those who did not follow orders or failed to meet their assigned quotas were executed, one by one along with the hostages. While the army created by Leopold II managed to control the Congolese population through fear and hostage-taking, this military control led to a significant issue. Soldiers began stealing bullets. In fact, Leopold II had planned to divide Africans by recruiting many local tribesmen into the army that directly controlled slaves, in order to prevent Africans from colluding and starting a large-scale rebellion. However, this scheme did not fully work, and some soldiers began to secretly steal bullets provided by the army and pass them on to those who had the intention to rebel. The Europeans in charge of the local army established these horrific rules to prevent uprisings by Africans. Shockingly, for each bullet used, a human wrist had to be presented as evidence. They wanted to prevent the theft of bullets by keeping track of the number of bullets and wrists that had been reduced, requiring the submission of the right wrist of the person killed with the bullet to prove that the bullet had been used for the proper purpose. Rather than preventing theft, this rule led to a devastating tragedy. A number of local soldiers took advantage of the rule and killed people without using their guns or attacked living people, cutting off their wrists and smuggling the bullets. Furthermore, since the submission of many of these wrists to the Europeans, who were their superiors, was rewarded with rewards and preferential treatment at work, and was also an indicator for the Europeans to evaluate the work performance of the soldiers. More and more soldiers began to seek for human wrists without any hesitation, and this eventually led to a rise in the number of slaves. This ultimately led to a profound shift in the values of those who were enslaved. Slave laborers were basically punished by having their wrists or those of their hostage members cut off or executed if they failed to meet their quota for rubber collection. Sometimes they could get away with this punishment by providing the soldier with a wrist that they had procured elsewhere. Under these circumstances, individuals subjected to unrealistic daily quota resorted to fighting each other for wrists as a means to protect themselves and their families. Wrists became a grim form of currency, valued for various dark purposes such as punishment, evidence of execution and quota fulfillment. They began to circulate in Congo's society, with a horrific value attached to them. Leopold II's skillful use of the media ostensibly made him a great king, who used his pocket money to improve the lives of Africans. But as various journalists began to report unbelievable stories about the Congo, as more journalists began to report stories that discredited Leopold II, his reputation started to deteriorate. Some say that Leopold II himself did not know every detail of the atrocities being committed in the field, and was averse to committing barbaric acts in the first place. But when the British launched a full-scale investigation of the Congo in 1903, and saw the numerous atrocities that confirmed the journalists' views, global criticism of Leopold II reached its peak. In 1908, the Belgian government took the Congo away from Leopold II, and from then on, the Belgian government decided to administer the Congo as a country. The reign of Leopold II came to an end, but Congo continued to experience independence movements, civil wars, and conflicts for a long time, and today it is one of the poorest countries in Africa. In fact, stories such as the one introduced here are not uncommon in Africa. Since the era of the slave trade, a large amount of people and resources have flowed overseas, and in exchange, a large amount of weapons have flowed in, and the division of peoples, establishment of borders, and domination through violence that were deliberately done for the convenience of European countries continued. The massacres and conflicts in various regions of Africa have led to ongoing turmoil that persists to this day. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content. Take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye!